Hi again, everybody. Gary Cubetta back, 57am.com. And with me tonight, I'm taping here in Scottsdale, Arizona, is professional wrestling legend Dutch Savage. Dutch, pleasure to have you with us.
Well, it's nice to be on board. Happy to be here.
Now, Dutch, what year did you get started in pro wrestling?
1960.
1960.
Mm-hmm.
And what gave you the idea to become a professional wrestler?
Well, my brother, my adopted brother, you ever heard of Luke Brown?
Yes.
Luke was one of the Kentuckians. That was my baby brother. He finally begged me to break into the business because I was working for the DuPont company back in Wilmington, Delaware, and I wasn't making any money. And he came home with a whole wad full of Canadian money, which I've never seen before. He had about $1,500 on him from 2 nights' work, and I'm making that much in 3 months back in the 60s. And he said, well, if you get in the business, I can guarantee you'll start making some big money. And he worked out with me a little bit at the Y. He says, can you still wrestle? I said, oh, a little bit. He says, you think you can still beat me? I said, sure. Well, we went down to the Y, and he used me for a lawnmower for about 4 or 5 minutes. He up and down the mat. I couldn't even breathe when he got done with me. I said, where did you learn all that? He said, well, I learned from Whipper Billy Watson and a few other people up in Montreal and in Toronto. And he says, I'd be glad to break in the business. If you want to get in, you'll make some big money. I said, well, I only weigh about 210 pounds now. So he fattened me up, and sure enough, he got me started in Macon, Georgia.
So you started in Macon, Georgia, 1960.
1961 for Fred Ward.
For Fred Ward.
He was opposition to the big Atlanta office, to Ray Gunkel and Paul.
What were your first impressions when you started to meet the people that made up professional wrestling in 1961?
My first impression of the promoters or the boys?
The boys.
Well, the boys they're a good bunch of people as far as I was concerned. Some of the promoters were very unscrupulous, but the boys were, as far as I was concerned, were fine. I had no problem with any of them.
And were you surprised at the schedule, the difficulty, exhaustion? You're new to the business, so...
Well, when you're new to the business, you really don't pay too much attention to that. You're like a little brand-new puppy after a bone, and you can't wait to get to the next town, and you really don't pay that much attention to it, regardless of how far you have to travel, because you're trying to make your mark.
Right. Now, when you started, were you losing matches or were you winning matches?
Both. Depending which promoter I was working for. And I finally got my big break, believe it or not, in Nashville, Tennessee. And George, I think his name is Karras. George Karras, I can't even remember the guy's name, it's so long ago. He liked my size and everything, and he put me in the ring with Mike Pedusas. And Mike Pedusas told Jackie Fargo about me, who was the big star there at that time, and Len Rossi. And sure enough, they had me working in Knoxville and Chattanooga under the hood as Mr. X. Because nobody knew me. They all knew I was a rookie in the business, but not the fans didn't know that. Well, we sold out Chilhowie Park and Johnson City and Jackson and all kinds of towns, even Memphis. And finally, Nick Goulas heard about it, and he's supposed to be the promoter of the whole shooting match, and Roy Welch booked me in Nashville, and Goulas didn't like me.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
So I told Nick Goulas, I said, well, listen, if I see you at all, I'll see you in the fall, and I took off. Went to Oklahoma.
Did you know at that point in time that you could make it in the business?
Oh, yeah. As the Lord would have it, I had no idea he was in charge of my life then. I was main event within 7 months of the business.
Oh,
when
wow.
I started, yeah. I don't know what. I guess it's just my natural athletic ability. I was a 4-letter man in high school: basketball, baseball, football, track.
So what was it like in the 60s? I didn't follow wrestling in the 60s. So
there were no schools.
Right.
And the way you broke in then, the promoter would give you a tryout with one of the guys on the card, and if he liked what he saw, he'd book you. And 99% of the time, the guys that are in the business at that time did not like rookies, and they made it very miserable for you. Spider Galento stretched me. I was like a pretzel when he got done with me my very first match. I quit that night in Macon, Georgia. I said, if this is what I'm going to get, this old man is 150 years old, beat me up. I says, and I'm just a young stud fresh out of college and everything. I said, if he can beat me, I'll never make it. But I got my pay. That was on a Tuesday night. I got my payoff on Thursday night. It was something like $400 and some bucks. I said, got to be something to this for 8 minutes work.
In the 60s?
Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
That was a lot of money. Fred Ward was a very good payoff man.
So you must have worked a lot of different territories in the 60s. Now, was the 60s similar to the 70s in that there were specific territories?
There were specific territories all the way through the 70s until you hit the 80s.
Right.
And that's when WWE started in. That's what ruined the entire business for the territorial systems. And it's a cancer, and it's riding the crest real high right now. But the WWE it's going to shoot itself in the foot. It'll break down sooner or later.
Okay, we're going to get to that. When did you first go into Portland? Because your career really, in many ways, defined by Portland, Portland wrestling. You're synonymous with it.
Well, I came out here on the West Coast in '66 to work for Gene Kaninsky and Rod Fenton and Sander Kovacs, and I worked in Vancouver, British Columbia. When I first came out here, Don Jardine and I were tag team partners. We came out of Amarillo.
The Spoiler, right?
Pardon?
The Spoiler.
The Spoiler, yeah.
Yeah.
And we came out of the Amarillo territory, and we went to Portland. We were going to start working for Don Owen in Portland because he had the whole territory by himself then, but his brother had Salem and Eugene. And right off the bat, Don Owens didn't like me because he doesn't like real big guys. Well, I says, well, if you don't like big guys, what are you doing with Jardine? He's twice my size. Well, as fate would have it, within 5 months, he didn't like Jardine either. So he gave Don Jardine his notice, and we brought him up into British Columbia, tagged him up with me. And then in 1968, I went down and worked 2 or 3 shows for Don in Portland. And he said, well, I didn't know you could work. I said, that's because you never gave me a try. And from that point on, the rest is history.
Did you know immediately that was a territory that you were going to like to work in?
Right. I knew immediately that I'm going to, most of the guys like to travel all over the country. That's why I could never be world champion. I didn't want to travel all over and live out of a suitcase for the rest of my life. Harley Race will attest to that. Harley said Dutch would have made a good champion, but he wouldn't travel. And I fought tooth and nail to stay there because it was a small man's territory at that time, kind of a light heavyweight.
Yeah. And
I was the only big guy there, and then Stasiak came in, and we started getting over like gangbusters, and the little guys got kind of jealous. They were bad mouthing us all the time. And finally, Don let me win a match. I always got disqualified the first 7 months I came in. Every match was a disqualification. And my thing on television was, well, the reason they're disqualifying me is they're afraid I'm going to do bodily harm and hospitalize a couple of these people that they have down here, the fans' favorites. That's why they disqualified me. I said, I don't want to hurt any of their little boys. And as soon as I won my first match, I was automatically a heel. And the people hated me. And then one night, the Von Strikers were working over Beauregard, and I happened to jump in the ring and help Beauregard. And from that point on, I became everybody's hero for some reason or other. I don't know why. I wasn't doing anything any different in the ring.
Unlike today, Dutch, when someone turns, it means nothing. But back in the 70s, if someone were to turn from heel to babyface or babyface to heel, it was a big deal.
Yeah, it was. It was a super big deal.
And I think that's one of the things, we'll talk about it later, but that's missing from wrestling today is that there are no more villains or faces or heels. It's just everyone's mixed in together, and it's one big spectacle.
Yeah.
When you were working in Portland in the early 1970s, was the money good?
Well, the money, as far as I was concerned, was good, considering the amount of traveling we had. We had very little traveling here in the Portland territory versus, if I worked Oklahoma, Monday I'd be in Tulsa, Tuesday in Shreveport, Louisiana, Wednesday in Odessa, Texas, and then back into Wichita Falls, and then back into Tulsa, and then to Oklahoma City. It was terrible. The money you'd make, you'd have to spend on almost for transportation, and it kind of kept you in the territory because you needed bread for the next week.
Yeah.
So out here in Portland, we were home every night, which was great as far as I was concerned. In 1971, I bought Sander Kovacs out of the state of Washington. And
you promoted with Don Owen.
Well, Don, I used the talent that Don had, and I started with Seattle. Okay. And Seattle and all the towns that Harry Elliott had run into the ground, they weren't even drawing. You couldn't dry flies to a peanut butter jar when I first got there. And we started doing some of the things I learned over my previous career. And lo and behold, within 9 months, we were out drawing Portland 50-1.
So you weren't really promoting with him. You were separate, but you were sharing talent.
Right.
Okay, fine. Now, you're in Seattle, the early 1970s. What year did Jesse Ventura come on the scenes?
Jesse came in here along about 1979.
Oh, 79.
Yeah.
That late.
Yeah.
Who were some of the other stars that wrestled in the early 70s? I know Moondog Mayne.
Well, there was Gino Hernandez, Lonnie Mayne, Tony Bourne, Kurt and Carl von Steigers, Frankie Lane. Oh, boy, there's been so many of them. Rip Oliver, a lot of guys that came in. I can't remember all of them, but there was hundreds of them that went through here. Everybody wanted to come out here to work the Portland Territory because there wasn't any trips involved. You made good money, and it was the hottest territory in the United States per capita at that time. Everybody wanted to come out here.
Now, during this time, you also wrestled some in San Francisco. You did some touring, Hawaii.
Yeah, I worked over in Hawaii as Dutch Schultz.
Dutch Schultz.
What had happened there, Ed Francis booked me in there coming back from Japan, and right away Jimmy Haiti, who's dead now, said, you ought to give this guy the belt. You'll make some money with him. And Jimmy had the belt at that time, so they gave me the belt. And I stayed there for about a year, but Ed Francis said, you can't use the name Savage, because we had a guy in here that took your name, and he stunk the joint out. So he said, we're going to call you Dutch Schultz, the grandson of the infamous gangster from Chicago. And Curtis CLQ was my tag team partner then, and Rip Oliver.
Did they ever
Ripper Collins.
Did they ever do good business in Hawaii? Because I know.
Oh, yeah, gangbusters.
Oh, they did.
We worked 3 days a week and make something like $1,500 to $1,600 a week.
Yeah.
Wasn't too shabby for those days.
Do you know what eventually led to the demise of wrestling in Hawaii? Because like during the 1980s, it was pretty much dead.
Well, I have no idea what happened there with Ed and Blears and the rest of them.
Yeah.
But I do know that when in the 80s, when the WWE first came in, they took on national television, and that killed it for all of us because we only had territorial television. And what McMahon did, he guaranteed all the top guys in the country $5,000 a week to come in there, and he weeded out all the bad talent and kept the good stuff, and all the good stuff from all the territories went to New York, and the little territories are left with nothing.
Yeah.
See, not everybody has the talent to go into a territory and within 2 to 3 weeks be on top. They might have a big name in another territory, but in another territory they won't get over because they don't have the talent to do it. And a good promoter will spot that. That's why I've always said anybody that has talent, real talent in a business, can work with a broom and make it look good.
Yeah. Well, that's what they've said about. What's your opinion on Ric Flair?
Rick's a super dog.
Okay.
See, the thing about Rick can wrestle. And Rick went from old school to that new WWE. He had to go along with what they were doing if he wanted to make a living.
Right.
But Rick, to this day, as old as he is, he can get in the ring. I don't care if you got 15 people in the building. He'll have a riot going should he decide to do it the old way.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Jimmy Superfly Snuka actually...
He was my tag team partner for 7 years here.
Who, Jimmy, right?
Yep.
He got his start in Portland as far as being a mainstream wrestler, correct?
That's right.
Now, when he came into the territory, you worked with him for 7 years as a tag partner. What did you see?
What did I see?
When you first saw him?
I saw a box office. Okay. The guy was in that. See, you don't know this. Jimmy Snuka was an all-world rugby player.
Didn't know it.
No, he was an all-world and he was one of the chief lead male dancers at the Honolulu Intellectual Prefecture, the big auditorium there in Hawaii, that dance company.
Didn't know it.
The bugger taught me how to dance.
Huh. So when you saw him, box office. So what'd you think? What did you help develop his character, or was what happened? 7 years.
Listen, one night, about 2 years of working with him. One night we were working the Von Steigers, and I slammed Kurt in the far corner and crawled back to my corner and tagged Jimmy. He said, "Hey, brother, grab the rope, grab the rope." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Grab the rope and pull it." So I grabbed the top rope. He held onto it, and he leaned way back, almost out into the people, and I pulled it, and he went over my head the full length of the ring and splashed Kurt in the far corner. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, and I looked at him. I says, "Hey, can you do that all the time?" He said, "Oh yeah, piece of cake, brother." So we had a cage match there in Portland, and I'm watching him. It was a tag team cage match, and he tags me. He goes up on the top of the cage. Hey, get down off of there! He's up on by the ceiling. He almost touched the ceiling. He dove off the ceiling and splashed the guy for the finish. Did the same thing in Seattle. We had films of that in slow motion. When he got to New York, they'd never seen anything like that. That's where he got his name, Superfly.
Well, everyone remembers in Madison Square Garden, he went off the top of the cage against Bob Backlund, missed him, but it was something that no one here had ever seen. So
No
he had
one
actually
ever tried that before. No.
So he'd actually done it in your territory first.
Oh, sure. You saw Jimmy Stuka work. You saw me work.
How'd you guys keep him for 7 years? That's a pretty long time. Didn't anyone else see the talent in him? And
with strength and determination.
Mm. Yeah.
No, he liked it here, and when it was time for him to go, we sent him back to New York, and he became their first champion. Same thing with Piper. Same thing with a whole bunch of other fellas.
Now, how about Roddy Piper? He came in and
Rowdy came in working with all the Mexicans down in Los Angeles. Had no timing, had nothing, except he could talk, and he was in real good shape. And lo and behold, Rowdy Piper became Rowdy Piper.
Now, did he do it on your time? Did you guys help him?
Of course. He was in here, like I just told you. He came in here green as a rope. Same thing with Ventura. Ventura couldn't even talk on television when he first got here.
Well, see, this shows you that
Bull Ramus and I work with him.
Portland developed some of the great talent in wrestling. Snuka, Piper, Ventura.
Yeah.
And if people watch today's product and they wonder why are there so few quality pro wrestlers out there, one of the reasons, a big reason, is that the territories no longer exist, right?
That's right.
That's right. And that's why the quality of the product is what it is, which isn't too good.
What has happened, what they did, they went around and made sure that all the boxing and wrestling commissions, the wrestling part of the commission was done away with. And in the state of Oregon, they put it under the State Police Bureau. So when you come in now, you don't get a wrestling license, you get an entertainer's license. Yeah. And that's what happened to the business. It became complete entertainment. But the people's morals in this country, you can tell what they like. In my day, if a woman got in the ring in a ladies' match, she had to have a full bathing suit on with a body stocking underneath of it. Today, they use curse words. You couldn't say damn or hell during my day. They take you off the air. Look at it today.
Porno.
Well, look at the steroidal use. You know how you can tell if a guy's using steroids? Do you have any idea?
Well, they bulge.
No. I used to teach drug and abatement.
They look like a Marvel comic superhero.
I used to teach drug and alcohol abatement in school systems.
Okay.
Did it for 10 years. When you use any kind of steroidal antibody in your body, what happens, your heart pumps at least 2 to 3 times faster than it normally should to pump an inordinate amount of blood through your veins very quickly. And as it's doing that, one of the biggest places in your body where it stays is the fatty tissues. Guess what's 1/3 fat in your body? It's your brain. Now, if you take a look at a skull, when there's no skin on it, you have little marks on the skull that look like they're like little wormy things. Those are plates. Those plates expand and contract with your blood pressure. You've seen a skull before, haven't you?
Sure.
A human skull?
Yes.
Anyway, if you'll take a look at someone who use steroids, what's happening, the blood is pushing against that frontal lobe so hard that it's expanding, and sometimes it won't let it contract. That's where you get the Frankenstein effect on the frontal lobe. It looks like they have a square or rectangular front part of their head. Have you ever noticed that?
Starts to bulge out a little bit, or a lot of it.
Now you're going to start looking at that, aren't you?
Well, I've seen it before. Some of the ball players, I won't mention them, but
baseball. Right. Well, what happens when you come down off of that, what they used to use in that was phencyclidine hydrochloride, which is nothing more than angel dust, liquefied angel dust. And that angel dust, when they started using it, at first they used it on animals in the operating room. And they found out that the animals would go into grandma's seizures. They'd start shaking on the table and you couldn't operate on them. So they stopped using it. And somebody got the bright idea to feed it to human beings. When the human being comes down, his brain is so screwed up, it induces not just paranoia, but rage. Absolute rage. That's why people go almost insane from it.
Well, certainly you can see how many wrestlers have passed away over the last 10 years. Most of them have been on steroids, or at one time were on steroids. And the track record is pretty bad. Was there that type of track record of deaths in the industry back in the 70s or 80s?
Most of the guys, you wouldn't find too many. Most of the weightlifters were on top back in New York. Most of the other guys in the other territories, very few of them pumped iron constantly all day and used steroids. The ones that did pump iron, that's all they did was pump iron.
Yeah. So you didn't see those type of deaths?
No. That was unheard of.
Unheard of. So it's clearly the drugs have had just a major issue.
Well, see, the reason he did away with the boxing or the wrestling commissions in the states, McMahon did it politically. Is you don't have to have any blood tests taken anymore. And at least every 3 months you had to have a blood test taken by the Washington State Athletic Commission or the Oregon State Athletic Commission. They don't have to do that anymore. They're entertainers.
And as a result, since they're entertainers, they don't have to be tested, and no chance of what would probably happen, which is suspensions, right?
Well, I guess they would do that. I would hope they would, but I don't think they will. It's a money game. Money talks, faith walks.
Dutch, did you ever think in the 1970s that wrestling would turn into, I mean, on one hand, such a big money business, and on the other hand, well, obviously you've already said you didn't think it would, you would hope it wouldn't, the women, the language.
I'm just sorry that it's gotten so immoral. That's what I'm sorry. It used to be considered a sport. It's not considered that anymore. It's considered entertainment. But here's the problem. It'll show you the nation's morality when they up professional wrestling to the level it's at. We used to make thousands convincing the people. They're making millions just taking tumbling lessons. It baffles my mind.
If you had produced a product in the 70s, like they produce today,
they would have laughed me out of the building.
Wouldn't have made any money.
Well, they would have laughed me out of the building.
Yeah. How important in the 70s was it that the people believed that the matches were pretty much real?
It was everything. It was everything to us. It's the era of, they like to call the word, use the word kayfabe. We were much better psychologists than these kids are today. All they do today is clothesline, one tackle, drop down, get another one, punch each other, come off the top rope, all kinds of nonsense. A hammerlock in the center of the ring should be able to generate enough heat to have a riot if you do it correctly. But they don't know how to do it.
And
they're taught by these schools by guys that never really knew how to work.
In the 1970s, you worked throughout the 70s with Don Owen, sharing promotion. Did you control Seattle throughout the 70s?
Oh yeah, all of Seattle, and I did all of Elton Owens' towns also in Oregon. He wanted to jump on the bandwagon. He couldn't understand why we were drawing so much in Washington and Oregon was drawing so little. We were doing okay in Portland. That was Don's town, but the rest of them were Elton's.
How did you get involved? I remember seeing you on PBS around 1978. One of the first times I had seen an outside territory on TV locally. You and was it the Iron Sheik?
Who, Don? Yeah, that was
the documentary that PBS did.
Oh yeah, well that came about by Encyclopedia Britannica gave a grant to a film company in Spokane, and those guys wanted me to do a documentary. They want to enter into the documental category of the Academy Awards. I think we were number 3 on the documentary part of it in that year. And that film company is in Spokane. I can't remember the name of it. It's on the tape someplace. You'll see the name of the film company. It's called Savage. When they first had it, when they first led into that, the words came across the screen at the start of the film. It said Savage, and there was blood dripping from it. Well, it was too harsh, they figured, so they stopped that part of it.
And how long did it take for them to film that?
Well, they filmed that in one night at the Portland Sports Arena.
Okay. And that was shown all over the country, nationally on PBS, right?
Nationally, yeah. That was the West Virginia Coal Miners glove match.
And it was with the Iron Sheik?
With the Iron Sheik.
Now, you were famous for that match, that specific type of match. Did you develop that?
Right. I'm originally from Scranton, Pennsylvania. And the story goes that old miners, if they had a beef against one another, you couldn't have a fight down in the mines because if you knocked the post loose or whatever, it got really bad, you'd cause a cave-in. So the foremen would bring you up at a lunch break or just before you got off of work, and they'd throw a glove with some steel across the knuckles, like a coal miner's glove with steel across the knuckle into a pit, and you'd both fight for it. The first one that got it could use it on the other, and it only took one punch.
And you brought that into the world of wrestling.
So what we did, I put it on the 10-foot pole up and over top of the ring, higher than the ring cage. And you would climb up to get that glove. The first one that got it could, but the trick was getting the glove. They ruined it. They went into after I retired, they put it in tag matches. Don asked if he could borrow it. They put it in tag matches and all battle royals and all that. They ruined it.
Well, I remember from the PBS documentary that I saw originally, the heat from the crowd. It was just extraordinary. It wasn't like you were in front of 20,000 people like Madison Square Garden, but...
No, there was only about 3,000 people there.
But it was filled, and the people were... It was life and death as to who would get up there and get that glove.
Yeah, that was the whole secret to the thing. The guys today don't know how to do that.
And when you did these matches, did you get consistent... Was it consistent heat from the day you started to the day you finished, or did it kind of...
The first one we ever did, Elton Owens suggested I fix up I have my own gimmick match. Everybody had a gimmick match, but me, I didn't need it. I said, all right, so I thought up that coal miner's glove match. Well, Don wouldn't try it in Portland because he didn't think it was a draw. We turned people away. They had riots outside in Eugene, Oregon, the first night we did that. So Don got the idea, and we did it about 6 weeks later at Portland. They had riots outside of the old roller rink there in Portland. The night we did that one, the people couldn't get in. So then we took it up to the Coliseum in Vancouver, BC, and then to the Seattle Center Coliseum and sold the places out.
Dutch, back then, what was the biggest crowd you could draw? Was there a big arena that you used?
The biggest arena we used was up in, there was one here in Portland, the old Coliseum, and that seated about 11,000, I think. But up at the hockey arena in Vancouver, at the, I forget what the name of the place is, the great big one, P&E Gardens, that's what it is. I think that held something like 16,000. I had one with Gene Kaninsky up there. He almost beat me to death.
Well, he was tough guy. When you'd book the big arenas, could you sell them out, or was it just impossible? Or
no, we sold them out. We've sold them out. We've turned them away before.
Because I know most of those were special occasions when you went into the really big buildings, right?
Right.
Yeah.
In Portland, we'd have 2 television shows, and then we'd go on a Tuesday night special. 2 television shows, Tuesday night special.
Now, as you became more and more famous during the late 70s, did you ever get calls from promoters across the country?
Oh, yeah, from everybody.
You did?
Yeah, Roy called me, like you said, but he talked about San Francisco. And I liked Roy Shire. A lot of guys didn't like, but I knew Roy, and I liked him a lot. And I told him, I said, Roy, I can't come down and leave my territory. He said, well, come down for a couple of shots and give me a hand because the medics have taken off on me. I need somebody to go against Pat Patterson here. I said, oh, I love Pat. I'll work with Pat. So we went down there, and they didn't expect to do $20,000. And we did, I think the first show with Pat, we did $135,000.
Oh, wow.
Which was big money in those days.
What was the problem with the Los Angeles territory? Because San Francisco did well through most of the 70s, but Los Angeles...
Do you want me to tell you the truth, or do you want me to lie to you?
No, I want to hear the truth, because I've always wondered...
Well, I don't want to sound like a racist. Okay?
Well, look, in the early...
Mexican talent during those days couldn't cut it. The only guy they had that was worth their salt was Blackie Gordman, Goliath, and Mil Mascaras. The rest of them, they just couldn't quite get it. I don't know whether the people didn't like him or what, but they weren't drawing the money. Blassie and John Tolis and whoever they work with, and Johnny Valentine, those are the guys that are drawing the money.
But that was the early 70s.
That's the late 60s, early 70s.
So why didn't they continue with mainstream talent? Why did they go... They kind of went to the lucha libre style. And
that's the reason.
They were broadcast nationally on the Spanish International Network, and I remember the Olympic Auditorium was almost always empty.
Yeah, that's the reason why.
And it was kind of embarrassing
to have... That's just this poor man's opinion. I'm not saying anything to do... Because I don't believe in racism. I'm a pastor.
So, Dutch, at the time, did people look at Los Angeles and say, what's Mike LaBelle doing?
Oh, a lot of times they looked, anytime the territory went down, they blamed it on Mike, but the key behind it was Joel Strongbow and Eileen Eaton. They kept the chains on him. Mike's a decent guy.
Dutch, in the 70s, did you go to the NWA meetings?
No.
You didn't?
No, I had nothing to do with them.
But you were part of the NWA?
I was a licensed member, yes.
But you never went to any of the meetings?
No, my partner did. Don liked all the accolades, being told what a wonderful guy he was.
Okay.
And he handled all the money in the territory. I did all the traveling and all the brains for the other towns. Don only had Portland.
Right.
And I didn't care about the accolades. I got enough of that in the ring. And like I said, with that and $1.50, you get a cup of coffee at a cheap restaurant. It means nothing.
Right.
Production means everything.
So coming out of the 1970s, were you happy with how your career and your promotion and everything was going, or were there problems behind the scenes?
I was getting sick of it. I knew, I smelled the harbingers of WWE going to come in 1980. They were making inroads back there, and I heard through Gagne's grapevine that they're going to start doing national television. So I told Don one night, took him to dinner, I said, we've got to either join these guys, because 20% of a $100,000 house is better than 50% of a $4,000 house. And he just looked at me and said, I don't need to, I'm not going to run from these guys. They're not going to run me out of business. I said, well, I'll tell you what I'll do. Here, I wrote on a napkin, I said, this is what I want for my end of the territory. You want your boy to be a promoter, you buy this from me, I'll even let you make payments, and I'm out of here. He just stared at me. He said, what are you talking about? You can't leave. I said, I can't, huh? I said, if you don't buy it, I'll sell it to somebody else. And he knew that everybody wanted a part of this territory at that time. But they couldn't smell WWE coming in. I could. So I sold out. I told him I'd stay on for 6 months to teach Barry, who never had a pair of tights on in his life, the ropes. So I did. And then I left, and the rest is history.
And what year was this?
It was 1980, 81.
In 1981.
Yeah.
And you weren't a part of Portland after 1981?
Nope, not a part of it at all. Didn't want it. I bought myself a farm, and I moved way out in the boonies. I'm right under Mount St. Helens. We look right at it.
Right. But I remember seeing you on TV after 1981 doing the commentary.
Well, I did. I stayed on for a while. And Don Koss, well, see, Frank Bonham had died.
Right.
And Don Koss didn't know Yale off the Hammerlock, so I had to stay on to help Don understand. And what I don't know, it clicked for some reason. They like frickin' Frack doing that, so I stayed on for a while.
Yeah, I remember the first episode that you two did after Frank had died. How long had Frank been a part of the promotion?
Oh, for 20 years. He wasn't part of the promotion. He was just hired to do the commentary on the show.
But the people loved him.
Oh, the people loved Frank, yeah. Frank would burp and talk and say, well, there you have it. He was very laid back.
And very unique. Today, a wrestling broadcaster like that wouldn't be for today, but back then, it was really something how he would handle things.
Yeah,
very different, very unique.
He kept everything viable.
So you took over with the commentary with Dan. Now, what did you have to do with Billy Jack Haynes coming into Portland? Were you around at that point in time?
Billy Jack came to me and he says, I'd like to break into the business. I says, well, what have you done? He said, have you had any amateur wrestling? He said, no, but he was a pretty big boy. I said, well, you got some pretty big muscles on you. That tough? Oh, yeah, I'm pretty tough. I says, well, you got any police record? He said, oh, yeah, I was on the shelf for a couple of years. I said, what for? He said, manslaughter. I said, well, I'll tell you what, I'm not going to break you in here. I said, that gets out, well, you'll kill our business. So he talked to Don, and everybody, see, Don always double-crossed me. If I said something, Don would double-cross me and do just the opposite, because he wanted everybody to know he was the big boss. But that's okay, I hold nothing against him. We were friends when we parted. And so he got a hold of Dave Roop up in, what's his face, up in Calgary. Oh, his son got killed here in New York. What's the guy's name? It's Stu Hart. He got a hold of Stu Hart up in Calgary, and they sent him up to Calgary, sent Billy Jack up to Calgary for 6 or 7 months. So I get a phone call, and I says, hello, and he says, Mr. Savage. I said, yes, this is Billy Jack Haynes. I said, well, Billy Jack, how you doing up there? I said, how's my friend Dave Roop? And he hesitated for a while. He says, you mean Mr. Roop? I said, yes. I said, what's the matter, Billy? Aren't you a big, strong guy? He says, well, this is the first time in my life I've ever kissed my own rear end. Dave tore him up.
Sure. Wow. Were you there when he made his first appearance on?
Oh, yeah, I was here.
For Portland Wrestling?
I was here. Yeah, he did all right for a while, but then he made the mistake of trying to tell Don how to run his territory.
Because when Billy...
He wouldn't come to me, but he told Don how to run his territory.
When Billy Jack debuted, it looked like you guys had caught lightning in a bottle there with another Jimmy Snuka or a real local star.
Well, he was doing really well until it went to his head and he became a legend in his own mind. The rest is history. New York kicked him out. Dallas kicked him out. He tried to do his own business here in Portland. That kicked him out. I feel sorry. I still like Billy, but I feel sorry for the way his life turned out. He got brass-knuckled outside of a bar one night. They did some brain damage to him.
Did you think when you first saw him, aside from the police record, and a very serious police record, did you think here's a future world champion, or did you think no?
I thought he would be a good for the Northwest. After that, I didn't know because of his attitude.
Yeah.
He came back a different guy. He lost all the humbleness.
And then he, of course, we'll get to a bit later, but he started his own promotion, and things have just gone downhill. I don't know where he is today.
Yeah, you forgot of a couple of guys that broke in the late 70s. Playboy Buddy Rose was here before Piper.
Yeah.
And Rose Perchman, when he first came in, and I worked in the ring with him, had his first match with him, and he knocked me down in the corner and did something that people just went crazy, and I just looked at him and I said, "Money in the bank." He just looked at me and said, "I didn't hear what you said." I told him afterwards. He said, "What did you say to me?" I said, "Money in the bank, kid, money in the bank." And he did real well.
He didn't have the look of a modern day wrestler, obviously, but he had a magic. He came to New York.
Charisma.
He came to New York, and I think they thought he'd be a second level heel, and he got over like $1 million, and got main events with Backlund in like '83. He was very underrated.
I don't know what happened to him back there. I know he came back.
He did well.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to him. If he did well, he would have still been there.
Well, that was a little bit before they had gone national, so I don't know exactly. They used to cycle guys in and out. In Portland, was it a big deal to keep the talent flowing throughout the promotion?
Oh, yeah.
In and out?
Yeah, in and out, in and out, in and out. Keep them fresh.
Did you ever get a guy up there, Dutch, that you thought was going to be fantastic, somebody really pop business, they came up, and for whatever reason they just didn't adjust to your type of style?
Yeah, about 20 or 30 of them. That were big names in other territories.
Can you give me a name or no?
No.
Can't do it. But there were guys like that.
Oh, yeah. They couldn't cut the mustard here.
How about someone who's very famous, a former WWF champion, Stan Stasiak, who had a great career in the Pacific Northwest? I think he had his last matches up there.
Uh-huh.
And he was a good friend of yours, right?
Of mine? Of course he was.
Yeah. What can you tell me about Stan?
Well, Stan made a lot of big money back in St. Louis. We were working back in St. Louis. He was a world champion for him there at one time when they had Territorial world champions. And Stan did real well. When he came out here the first time, he did real well. Second time, he did real well. Third time, Don got tired of him. And we had a bad summer. And Elton says, "What are we going to do? Who am I going to tag you up with?" And blah, blah, blah. And Snuka went to Japan and all this. What are we going to do? I said, "Let me bring Stan Stasiak." "Oh, no, you can't bring Stan in. He's getting too old," and blah, blah, blah. I said, "You let me bring him in. Let me work with him as a tag team, and we'll work against anybody you want us to work against and see what happens." Well, that's after he came in, it was the best summer they ever had here. And after that, he stopped drinking when he came back in. And his wife, Kim, and I really worked on him. He stopped drinking and everything. And after that, he started drinking, and everything started going down the toilet again. So then he went back down to Dallas. And he had problems down there, and we brought him back in. And that was the last. I remember the last time I saw him was at Sandy Bar's flea market. And before I knew it, he was gone.
Yeah. Well, he had a big career. Do you think his career would have been bigger without the... Did the alcohol really hold him back?
Yeah, the sky would have been the limit for Stan. He would have been on top of the world for years.
Because he had some very good runs back east.
Oh, yeah.
And, of course, he became champion, and then he came in again.
Well, see, Stan had incredible timing. Incredible timing. That's the key to success to a good worker. It's not how well you can work. It's the timing of when you do things, not how. And the young guys can't understand that. Everything to them is drop down, get another one, jump over the guy, back, blah, 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 blah. You know, machine gun.
Like an acrobat.
Stan I'd get a top wrist lock and Stan and take him down the mat. And I said, come on, get up off your lazy butt. He said, "No, take your time, let's bore him for a while." So he'd bore him. I said, come on. No, let's bore him for a little while longer. Finally he says, "Okay, now." Boy, when he said now, you could see the dust coming out of the ceiling from the fans, from their yelling. He would have them on the edge of their seats. And he'd do very little. Key to a great worker.
Yes, he wouldn't be considered a quote-unquote great worker today.
Yeah.
No, he used psychology. Today it's How many backflips can you do?
The only guy that can emulate Stan in the what is today, F?
WWE.
WWE.
Entertainment.
The only guy that can emulate Stan at all, in any way possible, is The Undertaker. Yeah, that's the only guy as far as a great worker goes. See, he wouldn't need to do all the things he does, but that's WWE makes him do that. The Undertaker is he's just a great worker. He has a psych right off the bat.
Yeah. And
some of the other guys that I wouldn't give you a plug nickel for.
And he stood the time. Another name, Jonathan Boyd.
Jonathan Boyd was a real small guy. And I'm going to tell you the truth. You asked me. The only reason Johnny got over the way he did is because we worked around him. Johnny was only about 5'8". Did you know that?
Yeah, he was smaller for sure. So
he was only about 5'8". We made him look like $6 million.
Yeah.
His partner, Norman Charles, was a much better worker than Johnny was. Johnny had a gift of gab. That's the only thing that saved him.
I saw him later in his careers, and he would do these kind of shock promos. Did he do those in Portland? I mean, he'd say almost anything.
Well, we wouldn't let him do that there.
Okay, so was he tough to control, or?
No, he would. If I wasn't in the territory, he would be, yeah.
How about Sam Oliver Bass?
Sammy?
Yeah.
He was a good head. He'd do anything for you. He'd do anything to get a match over. Sam was a good hand.
Didn't they used to shout SOB? Sam Oliver Bass, yeah.
Yeah, SOB.
SOB. Mm-hmm. Jesse Ventura. We talked about him a little bit earlier.
Jesse was box office from the minute we got him.
Yeah.
Hello? I thought somebody was at the front door. Go ahead.
Jesse Ventura. The minute you got him box office.
The minute we got him, we knew it was going to be box office.
In the ring or on the mic?
Both.
Both.
As soon as he got the hang of it, you could see it coming.
And Adrian,
my little Goomba, my little Greek Goomba. Adrian, I worked with Adrian for years up in Vancouver, British Columbia, when he was just a kid. And I could see he had it. He had it all together. I didn't like the thing when he did the gay part back in New York, but he didn't have to do that. He would have been a great heel without that nonsense.
As a draw, how was he as a draw?
Great. If you used him right, great.
At the time, did it upset you that you were developing all this great talent and then they would leave and you'd have to start over again, or was it just part of the challenge, or just you accepted it?
The thing about a good promoter, or someone that knows what they're doing, you can make a star out of a broom if you use the broom correctly. It depends on what... See, Don would look at a guy's body. I would never look at a guy's body. I didn't care what he looked like physically. I would watch the fans, how they reacted to him, what he did in the ring. I could tell you in a minute whether the guy was going to get over or not. Just by the reaction of the fans, regardless of the babyface match or a heel match. Didn't make any difference. And I put made stars out of some of the biggest unmuscular people on the planet.
Did you find it a challenge to bring in fresh talent and make stars? I mean, it was like, did you do it on purpose? Or?
Oh, no. We're very careful about who we brought in.
Okay.
Yeah.
But was it the design that you would create that person and make?
Yeah, we could create our own stars. We were looking for somebody. Here's what I tell the people: listen, if you don't want to do what we're asking you to do, we're programming the territory 6 months down the road. We're not doing this month to month, week to week, just for payoffs. We're doing it 6 months down the road. If you don't want to do what we're going to tell you, we were looking for somebody when we got you. So there's the door.
Yeah.
I know they hated to hear that, but that's what else could you say? Now, see, you've got me talking again about professional wrestling. And these people don't know that I'm a pastor, see? And I don't sound like a pastor when I'm talking about professional wrestling because they expect me to have a nice, sweet little voice and talk like this. My daddy say it. But I won't do that.
Well, I've heard Bill Watts say that once he starts talking professional wrestling, his entire demeanor changes.
Who's that, Billy?
Yeah.
I worked for Bill in the Tulsa territory when he first got the book for Leroy. We sold out the Oklahoma Stockyards Coliseum many times.
Did it surprise you, Dutch, that Vince was the guy that took it national, or
No,
because
no, it wasn't at all. I had a feeling as soon as the old man got out of the picture that the boy was going to go for Superman stuff, and he did.
But why? Why did you think that?
Well, it's egomania.
Let's say that he hadn't been able to do it. He hadn't been in a position to do it. Somebody was going to try it, right, with cable TV?
Someone would have tried it, but I don't think they would have succeeded because he had his father's connections.
So if there hadn't been a Vince, a Crockett, a Watts, of the Von Erichs in Texas, you don't think they could have made it on a national basis?
Fritz might have. Fritz had the schmaltz to do it. Whether he would want to do it or not, I don't know. I don't think Fritz thought he was a world beater.
Yeah.
Billy Watts. You have to understand Bill. Two things you don't do with Bill. One, you don't cross him. And the other thing is you don't cross him. And too many people double-crossed him that when he first started working in the Atlanta territory, that took him to the cleaners. And Bill's the type of guy, so that's it, I'm out. He's gone.
Yeah.
And that's what happened to Bill. That's what I think, anyway.
When you saw what Vince was doing, was it instantly a negative reaction?
Yes. For me, it was.
You were out of the business at that point, right?
Well, I knew what was coming.
You knew what was coming.
Oh,
so,
sure. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out if you keep your finger on the pulse.
Did you think at any point in time, hey, maybe because the Pacific Northwest doesn't have the biggest arenas and it's not that maybe
wouldn't have made any difference?
Doesn't matter.
No.
Did you think because of his TV production, or that he would actually come in and run the local arenas?
When he went national, here's what happens when you go national. Every television station in the nation on the network picks up the show. Now, how can you buck? He's taking all the top talent out of the United States of America and taking it back to New York. Now, how can you buck that talent with the underneath cards here in the Pacific Northwest?
When he went national, did you see an instant fall off in the attendance?
Yes.
And you knew that
it was just a matter of time before I went down the toilet.
Just a matter of time. Was it a sadness, or had you gotten the business, had your fill of the business?
Oh, I had my full of the business. It wasn't so much both my partners, just the boys. I couldn't take them anymore. I just couldn't take them. Lie, cheat, and steal, and that was enough for me. Plus the fact that in 1977 I'd found Christ, and here I am trying to preach and teach Jesus Christ and Him crucified, professional wrestling out of the other side of my mouth. It just wasn't working. It was digging at me constantly all the time. And finally I just said, well, Lord, I'm going to follow you no matter what. And it's the greatest move I ever made in my life. I've got a peace now that defies all understanding. I'm out here in the middle of nowhere. I love my life. I have a new wife of 28 years. And life is just a kick in the seat. Going fishing tomorrow, by the way, for salmon.
You were a bass fisherman, right?
I was a bass fisherman
like
at one
champion,
time until
right?
I caught my first salmon.
Okay.
Now my grandkids have all my bass gear.
Oh, wow.
It's a little difference in pulling in a 5 and 6 pounder with a 30 pounder in the current fighting against you.
Yeah. When you first got out of wrestling, was there a withdrawal?
A withdrawal?
Well,
I was glad to be out.
You just from day one.
I was glad to be out. It wasn't not from day one. It took a couple of anybody that says that they didn't miss it's a fool. About a month and a half, I was over it completely. And then by that time, of all things, I asked the Lord, if I'm going to be going to work for you, please don't put me back on the road. So they put me into the Oregon Conference out here of Christians, and they sent me all over the nation preaching and teaching. That showed me.
Yeah. Dutch, who was your last match against?
Oh my stars, I don't even remember.
Did you have like a big final send off or?
Oh no, I just announced on television one night. I just got up, I shocked everybody, even my partner Don. I said, ladies and gentlemen, I said, I don't know whether you know this or not, but I've had one of the greatest runs in my life, and I'm so happy to have been part of professional wrestling. And you can start to hear people going, ooh. I says, and with you, Frank, I want to tell you right now that I'm done. I'm retiring as of tonight. I appreciate everything that Tom Peterson's done for the work. I appreciate my partners, Don and Elton Allen. And the boys in the dressing room do not know this, but this is it. Tonight's my last match. And that was it.
Oh, and it was it. You never came back.
Nope.
Wow. That doesn't happen today, huh?
No, it doesn't happen
They
today.
announce they're going to retire, and then they come back.
Well, they're making a lot of money today versus what we were making in those days.
What was it like in the dressing room back then? Did the guys get along with the petty?
Some of them did, some of them did, some of them didn't. It was like anything, like any business, it's cutthroat. Anybody that's on top is going to get knocked. You know how that goes.
Oh, sure.
That's just standard SOP for the human race. That happens in every business in the world.
Have you ever been in a dressing room where you were, nervous for whatever reason, somebody you didn't like, maybe somebody, you're 6'4", I don't know who's going to threaten you, but somebody, was there ever an uncomfortable situation in a dressing room?
No, just towards the end of it there, I was so sick of it that it was just distasteful for me. About the last 3 months, it was just distasteful for me. I wanted to be there, and yet I didn't, and I said, oh, this is ridiculous. Why should I suffer through this? I can find something else to do. So I did.
When you see professional wrestling today, and it's hard to even call it professional, let's call it professional wrestling entertainment today. Do you watch it?
Do I watch it? No, but the only time if I'm channel surfing and I see The Undertaker on there or see whoever he's working with, I'll watch a bit of that, but that's about it.
Now, a lot of people think the older wrestlers are jealous of the money that's being made today. And that's why the older wrestlers are, one of the reasons, are upset with wrestling today. But there's more to it than that.
Well, let me ask you a commonsensical question.
Yeah.
If you're the pioneer of making something happen and making it great for somebody else that comes along, and you're getting paid peanuts compared to their coming along doing 1/5 of the work you did to get the thing where it is, what would you say?
It's bad. It's tough because in professional football, you've got a union, you've got a pension, so even after you're done with the game, there's still checks coming in.
That's right.
So the professional football player can say from the 1970s or 80s, can say, yeah, the guys today are making more money, but at least they still respect the fact that I'm alive and I was part of creating.
Here's the thing about professional. Why do you think there's no unions?
I don't know. You tell me.
Well, let's try this. The boys are only as loyal as their next payoff. Now, if they're not making any money, they're going to kiss up to you to make some money, aren't they?
Yeah.
And if you say, well, I'll fix it so you can't work anywhere else in the country, what are you going to do? You're going to fight them or you're going to join a union?
Well, obviously, there would be a union in wrestling if
See, there's that big word again.
If the situation had allowed there to be a union, but obviously
the guys won't stick together to fight it.
They wouldn't stick together
because they're independent contractors and only paid so much per match.
Yeah, and it's tough because now Vince has got pretty much a monopoly.
You think?
A total monopoly, and he can do whatever he wants to do.
I don't really care.
And that's why we are where we are today with wrestling. So does it upset you, the product, or do you just ignore it?
I just ignore it. Here's the thing about the world, dear heart.
Go ahead.
The world is going to continue to do just as it's been doing. What's the root of all evil in the world?
Money.
Wrong.
Jealousy.
You don't read your Bible.
Okay, go ahead.
So you got part of it, but you forget the other part of the codicil is on the end of the sentence. The love of money is the root of all evil.
Okay.
You got to love it. You got to want more of it constantly. That's why there's so much greed and avarice, and the scriptures are very replete with warnings about being like that, because that will not happen in the kingdom, and you will not get into the kingdom by that kind of a mindset. I don't care who you are.
The love of money.
The love of money is the root of all evil. Now, here's the thing. Now, suppose you're Vince McMahon, and you make $1 billion this year. You got it?
I got it.
And the Lord says, tomorrow I'm going to require the very breath that you have, and I'm going to put you in your grave, and I'm going to put you to sleep for a long time. What are you going to do with all that money you've got? I know. We'll give the fever to my brothers and sisters and my sons. So he gives the money to them, and they get the giddy mentality, and the beat goes on. It's human nature. It's built into the DNA unless your mind has been transformed by somebody that loves you.
Yeah.
Oh, well, what do I know?
No, Dutch, hey. Look, Vince has chased the money. He's been successful. He's changed wrestling, and you know, a lot of fans today, they wish for the old days of the sport because it was more of a sport back then. It was more of a competition as to who would get over. It wasn't decided by one man in Stamford, Connecticut.
You're absolutely correct.
And a lot of that is gone, and that's why I think some of the veteran wrestlers, the older wrestlers, are so popular today on YouTube and other forums. People really, in a lot of facets of life, long for the good old days.
Well, those are passé. You're not going to see those ever again.
Well, you can watch them. You can watch them.
We can whine all we want to, but it's not going to happen. You've told the people about my site, haven't you?
www.DutchSavage.com. And it's actually an excellent site.
Underneath the opening picture, you'll see me throwing a mask guy across the ring. I was 47 years old when that picture was taken. And that's Moose Borowski under that hood. And right underneath that picture, you'll see the Lord's Loud Cry HTML. You click on that, takes you to a different link. Click on that link, and it opens up our ministry here in the Portland area. We reach about 1 million people, called the Lord's Loud Cry. And if you don't want to watch the show, you can always read the show. At the bottom of the page, it's the Lord's Loud Cry again, but that's the written version. They're only half-hour shows, and they're very professionally done.
Dutch, when did you start those?
I started that when was it I started? 1991, I think I started it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Well, I didn't start. The Lord opened the doors for me.
Okay.
We don't ask for money. You show me one place in the Scriptures where Jesus Christ asked for money. Show me where he took a salary. You won't find it. Show me where it says denomination. You won't find it. I teach King James Scripture. I get a lot of heat, just like Jesus did, for telling the priests of his day, the pastors of his day, they're going the wrong way, so then they assassinated him. What are you going to do?
A lot of hate and jealousy in the world for...
Well, we even killed our own God.
Amazing. Dutch, you were in the real estate business for a while, right?
Yeah, I tried that for a while until they wanted me to lie. And then I very unceremoniously told my bosses that they could find someone else to fill in for me.
So did you miss out this whole real estate boom? And
well, I didn't even care about it.
You were out, right?
All I was doing was making just a living. Listen, after I left the business and I started serving Christ, money, it doesn't matter to me anymore. Our farm is paid for. I don't owe anybody except Caesar once a year taxes, and that's it. The Lord has blessed us. We have a camp meeting up here at our farm every year where bunches of people from the home churches all over the Pacific Northwest come. We don't go to any building. See, a church is not a building. A church is where two or more of you are gathered together in my name, there am I in the midst of you. You're the church. I'm the church. That building has been Protestantized, and it says that you have to pay the salary of the pastor, you have to pay for the organ, you have to pay for the lights, you have to pay for the building. That's a bunch of nonsense. Jesus took his disciples into the homes around the Mediterranean and Judea during his day. But what do I know?
Dutch, you know, hey. www.DutchSavage.com. Now, Dutch, you really enjoy living in the Northwest. I could just tell.
I certainly do.
I could tell by your voice.
Yeah, we're up here. We're 1,410 feet above sea level on a place called Kelly Mountain. We're right under Mount St. Helens by a little town by the name of Yacold.
Do you travel a lot?
Me?
Yeah.
I go all the way to the river, and I come all the way back from the river.
Do you like air flight?
Airplanes?
Yeah.
Well, I have to go every now and then because they book me into some of these churches in other parts of the Northwest. I have to go. I don't like it because I spent too much time in the air during my career. But other than that...
I hear a lot of veteran wrestlers say once you're done with wrestling, you really don't want to fly anymore.
No. I've had wings on planes touch the ground. I've had fire engines following the planes down and landing on foam and all that other stuff. I've had my fill of that nonsense.
Back in the day, Dutch, did you have to book all your own travel?
I don't. The groups that bring me in to teach, they do it for me.
They do it for you.
Yeah. I don't. I keep it at a minimum, maybe once, twice, 3 times a year.
Okay. Well,
that's for the airlines. The other times I'm generally in my car.
Now, Dutch, you've got a lot of fans out there. They're going to listen to this interview over the next 6 months, the next year. Is there anything else you'd like to share with them?
Well, I would. Please do me a favor, the brothers and sisters that are out there. go home tonight, instead of just saying, I'm a Christian, open your Bible and start studying that book. I recommend that book unto everyone. The King James Version of the Bible, the oldest version you get. Don't get the new King James, because it comes from the Vicanicus Sinaiticus, which is a Roman Catholic manuscript. Now, I wonder which way it leans. Just read your book. See what Christ has for you versus what this stinking world. You'll find out that everything that's happening today has been prophesied, and we're right where we're supposed to be. God loves you.
Dutch, do you have any opinion as to where we're heading over the next 10 years? United States,
the
world?
United States of America?
Yeah.
We're right just about where we're supposed to be in prophecy. I look for it to go downhill a little more, and then I look for the Pope to move the seat of his power from Rome to Jerusalem. When that happens, there's going to be a lot of shake, rattling, and rolling. Read your Bible.
So you think the years ahead, very volatile?
Pardon?
Very volatile.
Oh, very volatile,
yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Dutch, it's been a pleasure.
Well, blessings to you, Gary, and it's been my pleasure, and thank you for having this old beat-up man on the air.
Well, I think what you did in your wrestling career was amazing. I wish that there was more video of you from the 1970s. Now, that's one last question I want to ask you. Everyone asked this. What happened to all the wrestling original tapes from the 1970s? Who destroyed them?
Want me to lie to you or want me to tell you the truth?
No, tell me the truth.
My partner, Don Owens, it would have cost us $20 to $25 every Saturday night to have a dub made of the tape. He was too cheap to pay for it.
That's a shame, because I think what happened in Portland in the 1970s is one of the great territories, and there's very little video of it, so people just have to hear the stories.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dutch.
You betcha. Blessings on everybody. Talk to you later.
God bless you, Dutch.
Bye.
Thank you.